So today I'm going to tackle two things that I've promised that I would do. One is a sketchbook tour, comparing my sketchbooks from before my year out to my sketchbooks now. And also while I'm doing that, I'm going to answer a question that was left by Alex in the YouTube comments. And I think you'll also have this question running around in your head as well. So keep watching and let's tackle these two promises together. So this is where I keep all of my sketchbooks. I bought it on purpose to keep all my drawing kind of ornaments. So these are ornaments that I draw when I'm a little bit stuck in my sketchbook. And it's also where I keep all of my sketchbooks. Most of these are just from this year, but there's like a couple that are from like the previous 10 years. Let me get those out and I will show you. So it's probably worth me starting with an introduction because I know I've got a few new viewers, a few new subscribers, so hello and welcome. My name's Emma, I'm an illustrator based in Sheffield in the UK, and this year I've taken a year back from making things to sell, from just making things to sell, in order to focus on my sketchbooking practice and learn how to sketchbook and learn what my hand looks like when I'm drawing, to learn my style, my visual language, because up until that point, even though I've been running a small business from home myself called Embers and Ink, I did not know how to sketchbook. I didn't know what my style was. I was so concerned with making things in order to sell. The only time I ever sat down before this year out to draw or illustrate was with the sole intention of making a product, like designing a card, designing a bit of stationery, or, you know, something like that. So, which is fine because I had a business to run, but it didn't leave much scope for experimentation and play. Not for me anyway. So, in a previous video, someone asked if I would share my sketchbooks. Now, I'm not going to regularly share my sketchbooks because that is a reward on my Patreon. I do have a Patreon, and on the £1 tier, you get access to sketchbook tours every month. You get access to a live Zoom drawing session where I'll provide things for us to draw and we'll draw along together for like 40 minutes-ish. You also get access to all of the recordings of all of our drawing sessions. You get access to all of the sketchbook tours going back to the beginning of the year. You get access to monthly downloads, so I make monthly calendars every month, obviously because it's monthly, and that's all on my £1 tier. So even though I don't want to regularly do sketchbook tours because that's a reward on my Patreon, I do realise there are people out there who may not want to join Patreon and may still be interested in my sketchbooks. So what I've got here is a selection of sketchbooks from before this year out, and then sketchbooks from the month of October. Now, you might think they're quite evenly weighted. There's like 5 here and 4 here, but they're a bit bigger, so. But at the beginning of this year, once I started sketchbooking more regularly and I realised I really loved it, I was curious to see how many sketchbooks I used to go through, and I dated them all. So this sketchbook here is my very first sketchbook. And, well, you know, as an adult, it's my very first sketchbook. I used to have them as kids, but this is my very first adult sketchbook, and it spans 10 years. That's how little I used to sketch. And you might notice at the end, it's not even finished. So the reason for that is I used to stress out about sketching. I had the wrong idea of what a sketchbook was for. I had this idea that sketchbooks were like a pretty place for pretty pictures, and when I was trying that, I didn't like what I was producing, so that made me feel like a failure because I was comparing my sketchbooks to those pretty sketchbooks you saw on Instagram and Pinterest and whatever was around in 2006, and it disheartened me and made me feel like a failure, and I didn't do it because of that. You know, to save my mental health, I didn't do that. So I stopped. And I think you'll see how tentative I am in these sketchbooks. So at the beginning, my very first sketch I remember this. I was sitting in my old job. You might not even be able to see it on the camera. I was sitting in my old job with this sketchbook on my knee and holding the top of it, not knowing what to draw, so I drew my hand. But look how light and tentative that is. And then on a trip to France, I drew, I'm not sure what that is. I don't think it's Mont Blanc, but it might be Mont Blanc. That's Mont Blanc. I was big into rock climbing at the time, so I was drawing rocks and mountains, but look how light and tentative it is. I didn't feel comfortable. Here's one of a ruin in York. All nice stuff. I looking back on it, I'm quite impressed with some of the things that I did, but you'll notice there's not an awful lot and a lot of blank pages because I didn't understand it. So this is 2018. This is a more expensive sketchbook. This is a watercolour sketchbook. This is a Stillman & Byrne Beta Series sketchbook in a portrait. And they're really nice sketchbooks, but I think because they were expensive sketchbooks, I didn't want to just do pencil drawings and stuff in them. And I felt limited to only doing like watercolour-y things. And then again, I didn't have anywhere to practice. So I'd do little watercolours and I'd try and make them. I still didn't know what I wanted out of a sketchbook, so I try and make it into a little journal, something pretty. But again, it's very stylised and not really a place where I was learning a great deal. I will do a full flick through in a second. In 2018, I went to the Isle of Lewis and it was like a holiday journal where I drew all of the bits. This one felt a little bit more organic. This felt more like what I wanted a sketchbook to be. Like little notes on people I was drawing. It felt more cohesive. It felt like I say, more organic, more natural. I wasn't necessarily forcing the sketches out of this. And because it had a purpose, it was like my holiday sketchbook. I did more stuff in this, and it was like almost like my sketchbook version of a photo album. It felt more like it had a purpose, but obviously I wasn't going on holiday every day, so my daily sketches fell off again. This is another expensive sketchbook. It's a Moleskine watercolour sketchbook, and this is a whole year. I don't even know if this is full yet. There's some really nice work in here, actually. So that's a whole year. So compare this to October 2023. So that's 10 months into my year out. And it's a world of difference. It's a lot messier, it's a lot scribblier, but so much more lively. I experiment a lot more in it. So I was trying out different colour washes, more colour washes here, scribbles. If something didn't work out, I just drew next to it. I didn't feel like I had to do one subject per page. Let me pop you in an overhead shot and we'll have a little look, and then I will answer Alex's question as we're flicking through these books. Okay, so the first four are 2006 to 2019, yeah, and the last five are all 1 month in October 2023. So this is the first sketchbook, and this spans a decade, a whole decade. And like I say, one thing I used to do is get very disheartened with sketches that didn't turn out right. I'd do ones like this that took a really long time, and then the pressure of doing something very pretty was so much that I didn't enjoy it. As this page shows, I got frustrated and I scribbled it out. I probably ripped a few pages out of this sketchbook as well. I didn't know how to use a sketchbook. And like I say, I used to compare myself quite a lot to the perfect sketchbooks on the internet. And I'd get frustrated when things didn't work out and stop, rather than carrying on. And that's too much pressure to put on yourself in a sketchbook, because to me, sketchbooks are a place to exercise your creative muscles and to play. They are now, anyway, a place that I can play with ideas and draw what's there rather than draw what I think it should look like. One thing I've learned from this year is let's do some testing out. One thing I've learned from this year is the best thing you can do is to just draw. And draw without a desire to have it look like something in particular, if that makes sense. In your sketchbooks, at least. Your sketchbooks aren't a place of finished illustrations. They're a place to experiment and play. And if you've got an idea that I want my work to look like this or like that, when your work doesn't look like that, you class yourself as a failure. When at the beginning of this year, when you might have heard me say this already, I found a resource called The Sketchbooker's Friend from the Good Ship Illustration, and they really made me see my sketches, see my sketchbooks in a different way. And they introduced the idea of timed sketches, so 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes. And in my very first exercise as part of the free resource of The Sketchbooker's Friend, I realised I wasn't very good at observing at all. I wasn't getting anything down. In 30 seconds, I could barely get the outline shape of what I was drawing. So I thought, right, I will focus on the timed element rather than the outcome. So I will see it as a game. How much can I get done in 30 seconds? How much can I get down in a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? And rather than having, so with these pictures, I had an idea of the kind of thing I wanted it to look like. Rather than, this is my cat Dave, this is when I was trying to find ideas and styles. This is when I was trying to find a style, actively seeking a style for my children's book, Our Dave, which I wrote originally as a gift to my partner's sister, realised it was good enough to self-publish. So I self-published it, and I self-published because I was on a time constraint of my partner's sister's birthday. So because of the time constraint, and because I didn't ever sketchbook enough to find my own style, so that's 10 years worth of sketches, my own style, I couldn't find that in there, especially for a children's book, because I never experimented. I decided to try and look for a style. And to me, that's the wrong way around, but I was up against it time-wise, if you know what I mean. I had a very quick deadline and no style of my own that I could see anyway. Looking back onto my old sketches, I can see my own hand in those, but there's no confidence there. So it doesn't feel 100% like me. It feels like a little bit like me and a little bit like I'm trying to be someone else. And that's what I get from these. These are my cat Dave. And at the time, Dave was alive. But I tried to draw an image in my head of what I wanted the picture to look like. When I had my cat there, I could have scribbled him in real life, but I didn't. I came at it the other way around. So rather than draw observationally, I drew from my head. And the drive was external rather than internal. Whereas when I found The Sketchbooker's Friend in January, I really found something I could get my teeth into. I found a way of approaching my sketchbooks that took me away from, it put a buffer between me and the end result. And through timing my sketches, I ended up getting a lot more actual work done. I put a lot more pencil to paper, and I became a lot less self-conscious about the end result. So I wouldn't mind too much if someone was looking over my shoulder and seeing my scribbles, or I don't anymore. Whereas if I was doing this, I remember when I was doing this one on the ferry. So it's a guy on the ferry, and he was just chatting away, and I was drawing him as I was looking at him, the first time I'd ever done that, and there were other people walking past, and every time someone walked past, I closed my sketchbook and pretended I was looking at something else. I wouldn't do that now, because now I'm like, I don't care about the result in my sketchbook. I care about getting the muscle memory. So in a 30-second sketch, how much can I get down? And by doing lots of 30-second sketches, you get a lot of practice. You get a lot of muscle memory built up. You get your hand-eye coordination is kind of practiced. Can you practice hand-eye coordination? Or it's exercised. And that, to me, has been the most valuable thing. Like I said, this sketchbook here, this is my I Love Lewis sketchbook. So this sketchbook felt a little bit more natural. It felt like it had more of a purpose because it was documenting my holiday. But still, it was very uptight. What I'd do, I would take photographs when I was out through the day. And in the evening, I would get the photographs up and I would spend all evening like drawing it. What I'd probably do now, if I was really going to try and capture my holiday, is I would try and sketch on location a lot more. But because this was held together with a theme of documenting my holiday, this felt a lot more purposeful, and I did get more drawing done in this holiday, in this week away, than I did in in one of the previous decades, between 2006 and 2016. So I think the thing with sketchbooking is giving yourself a purpose and a reason. Giving yourself a purpose and a what's the word I'm looking for? And permission, and the permission to play, and a permission to make mistakes and be rough and it not turn out right. And I was kind of touching on it here a little bit, because even though I was working from photos and it's still a bit uptight, there's no scribble marks really. Well, there is, I suppose there is, but I had a time constraint of the evening of my holiday, and I didn't want to spend all evening painting. So this sketchbook feels a little bit more like the sketchbooks I do now, but I still never finished it. So we're nearly through the old sketchbooks. This is our old allotment shed. This is now starting to feel a bit more playful, a bit more like, I knew at this point that I needed to change something, but I didn't know how, and I didn't know what. I didn't know what direction I was going in. And this pink bit here, I remember watching it was a Skillshare video about how to loosen up in your sketchbooks, and they suggested blocking out some colour in your sketchbook, and then it kind of takes the pressure of the white page away. So that's what I did there. So I was, at this point in 2018-19, I was trying to find that looseness, but it still didn't feel like it had a purpose. I really like the sketches in this sketchbook, actually. The black and white ones especially. So this is down in Swanage. The birds, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed with myself, but I really like the skills that I gained here. And actually drawing tonally, so drawing in one tone, it really helps. It helps you build up your skill of values. So the focus of an image should have the highest contrast of light and dark. And you only really get to practice that if you start to focus on the value of the piece that you're looking at or you're working on. And black and white really helps with that. These were photographs that I took of birds, and then I worked on them again in the evening. This is beautiful. I'm really impressed with that one. But looking at it, it's like someone else has done it. It's not as expressive as I am now. More realistic, way more realistic. But the pressure I felt trying to get emulate this kind of thing all the time meant that I wasn't actually drawing an awful lot or painting an awful lot. These are my plants, some more birds. This is about as messy as I ever got, and I didn't know where to take it after that. I did one page and then that was it. Here I was trying to draw people who I knew more illustratively. But again, this came from me saying, rather than me drawing and finding my own hand, my own style as I was drawing, like as you would find your handwriting. You don't do your handwriting and say, I'm going to write my handwriting like Axel Scheffler's handwriting or like Oliver Jeffers' handwriting. Your handwriting is your handwriting. You don't think about it. And that's what I do now when I'm drawing, and because I do that, that is my style. I was trying to draw these eyes, Axel Scheffler's eyes, not his actual eyes, but how he draws his characters. And I saw that in a book and I thought, okay, that's how illustrators do eyes. I'm going to do eyes like that. And I was coming at it externally, like how do other people do it, rather than trying to find how I do it, if that makes sense. You can tell I was always trying to get back to being scribbly. But I think I was a bit embarrassed by my scribble. So it always eventually got pulled back to the super neat black lines, and every now and then I'd try something looser. These are quite nice. These are from my garden. But I didn't really know where to go with it, so there's lots of when I look at this, I see lots of stagnation points. So I try and experiment with colour and try and add some new lines, but it went nowhere. You know, after these ones, I didn't do that again. And then I try and experiment again in another way, and then it just went nowhere. I didn't develop it. And then it just petered out. That's the end. So they're the last sketchbooks of mine before my year out in 2023. So a big gap between 2019 and 2023. So let's do a quick flick through of these sketchbooks, which span 1 month, October 2023. You will notice that the sketchbooks I use now are a lot cheaper compared to these ones. And I think that's part of the reason I didn't sketch a lot in these, is because the paper was very expensive, and when I did something like this, I was very mindful that paper, like how much that page cost. Do you know what I mean? I was very mindful that it's very expensive watercolour paper, and maybe I should save it for posh things. Where these ones are actually Hobbycraft ones, but I found some cheaper ones recently on Jackson's, and the paper is better. It takes a lot more water. They're not watercolour sketchbooks, but if you would like a link to the sketchbooks that I use now, check the video description. It's an affiliate link that I've got with Jackson's. I signed up with Jackson's through my own desire to do that. I'm not paid to promote Jackson's. I signed up with them because I was already using them, and then I found out they had an affiliate scheme. So just for transparency, just so you know, I'm not paid by Jackson's to say how brilliant they are. I was already using them. But I thought, seeing as though I was already using them, I might as well sign up to their affiliate scheme. Okay, so without further ado, let's get on to these. They're much cheaper sketchbooks, and I feel because of that, I've given myself more permission to scribble and try out new things. So here, like I said before, I was trying out new colour washes and crayons on top of colours and just seeing what's what. All of these are, well, except maybe a couple, all of these are observational, quick sketches. Some of them are maybe 10 seconds. Some of them might be a few minutes, but they're all observational, all on location. So I didn't make up this dog. I was trying to capture this dog very quickly. I feel so much happier with these than I ever did, really. Well, especially with these, but even with things like that. And even these. This is nice, but it's static. It's not, I don't know how to explain it. It's not gone anywhere. I haven't done anything with it. Whereas these feel like they've got a purpose. I'm building up my bank of knowledge about how a face works, about how people interact with things, how they drink, how they eat, how they wipe their mouths. I feel like it's building up my skill. Whereas this, I felt I was doing this for an imaginary audience to go, wow, you're so good at painting. And then I didn't go anywhere with it. I like them though. But these feel more, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. They feel more utilitarian. They're useful, they serve a purpose. They might not be beautiful, but in the, 3 minutes I've done this page in, I've got a lot more observational practice and a lot more practice in how I can get different marks with my pencils, how to draw a person in different positions while looking like the same person. Also how I do eyes, rather than this one where I was drawing people, where is it? I was drawing people in another illustrator's style. Now, with my time sketches, I found a way that is me. This is how I do it. When I'm given 30 seconds or 2 minutes to draw someone, I'm not going to spend a long time on the eyes. This is how I do it. So I feel a lot more like I've found my own handwriting. So my own drawing version of my handwriting in these sketchbooks. This here is not observational, but this is a photo that I've taken of my boy Rolly. And because this is month 10 out of a year out, so month 10 out of like 12 months of a year out, I wanted to start trying to put my style into more finished illustrations, and what could that look like. So trying to take because I've drawn a lot of Rolly in previous sketchbooks, but like I want to start, and I'm starting to do it a lot more now, like maybe take this guy out and how would that guy look in his own setting, to try and bridge the gap between my observational sketchbooks, which are very loose, very quick, and where I've built up a lot of experience and muscle memory, and also how do I kind of refine it a little bit while not losing the life by over neatening it. So this is my first experiments at that. And then back to observational sketching. I find also on the days when you're not sitting at your sketchbook or sitting at your table, if you're having to do like life admin and go shopping and get fuel in the car and all that kind of stuff, you can still take your sketchbook and do quick sketches in a car park. These are car park sketches. While I was waiting for Andy to get out of Morrison's, other supermarkets are available. And then, drawing things on the road on the way home very quickly, just to play and to practice. What's the problem if they don't go right? Nothing's the problem. These are little plans for Folktale Week, so little thumbnail ideas of how I might want to lay out a page, and then back to observational sketching. I really like the texture I've started to get with pencils. These were from one of the days when I was staffing the Sheffield Maker Shop, and I don't know why I wasn't drawing people outside. These are from the same day, so maybe everyone had gone from the cafe outside, but in those downtimes I just searched for some pictures on the internet, images, and this one was crows, and I just chose some thumbnails. I kept the pictures as thumbnails on the computer and drew them very quickly from the thumbnails. So rather than making them big and seeing every detail of the photograph and getting overwhelmed, if you keep the images as thumbnails, it's much easier to get your own style into those pictures. These are all observational sketches again. You see I'm getting a bit more texture in there. I love drawing people eating. It's one of my favourite things now. These are more internet search images. And then back to observational sketching. These are plans for Folktale Week. Then back to observational sketching. I think this guy was in the shop, in the cafe the other day. I think I'm starting to recognise people who I've been sketching in my sketchbooks. Anyway. So there's a lot more expression, a lot more consistency, and I feel like there's a lot more of me in these drawings, and I feel like they have a purpose, personally. So while I'm flicking through these, I thought I would tell you the question that was asked in the comments, which I thought you might like to know the answer to. Not that I've necessarily got the answer, but I thought you may have this question as well, and you might want to hear my take on it. So the question was by Alex, and Alex asked, if you're all over the map style-wise, is that something that eventually sorts itself out? Or do you just have to pick a horse and stick to it in order to get a style you're known for? I think that is a really good question. And I don't know if you noticed it in the sketchbooks from before my year out, but a lot of that was me trying to pick a style and failing. And I think that's because I don't think it's the right way round to do it. I'm sure there are some people out there who can work that way around, but I can't. And the people who I have experienced this year on my year out, I don't think they can either. So from what I've found, your style comes from observational sketching or from drawing lots without trying to draw like anyone else or in a certain style, and basically trying to get the handwriting version of your drawing. So find a drawing, like you might not like drawing in cafes or whatever, I never used to, and I would always encourage you to try and draw outside if you can. But as long as your drawing from life doesn't need to be in a cafe or anything like that, you could be drawing ornaments in your house. But I think the key is drawing like you. Okay, so whether you're drawing your collection of thimbles or teacups in your house, or whether you're going out to cafes and drawing people, I think the thing that you need to do is draw lots and draw often. In fact, there's a quote by Ira Glass. Oh, where is it? I'm gonna have to find it. Right, so I found it. So Ira Glass did a quote which is really worth listening to and really worth bearing in mind. So Ira Glass said, Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone had told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there's this gap. For the first couple of years, you make stuff and it's not that good. It's trying to be good, it has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer, and your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase, they quit. Most people I know who do interesting, creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have the special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this. And if you are just starting out, or you are still in this phase, you've got to know it's normal, and the most important thing you can do is a lot of work. It is only by going through a volume of work that you will close the gap, and your work will be as good as your ambitions. It's going to take a while, and it's normal to take a while. You've just got to fight your way through. And I think that quote is beautiful, and it's true. In the beginning, so in this one, there was a gap between what I wanted to draw and how I was drawing it. And that often made me quit. But the more I have drawn, the more volume I've put out, the more time sketches I've done, which have taken my mind off the end result and just got me drawing, the better I've actually became. And the closer I am to actually the closer I am to drawing how I want to draw. So that would be my advice. So going back to Alex's question, if you're all over the map style-wise, is it something that eventually sorts itself out, or do you just have to pick a horse and stick to it in order to get known for a style? I think do what Ira Glass says and just do a volume of work, which is why time sketches are amazing, because it gives you a reason to draw without getting disappointed with the end result. Because if it's rubbish, if you think it's rubbish, if it just turns out like a vague scribble, it doesn't matter, because you were doing that in a time. It's the time that counts, and that kind of distances you between what you want, what you expect the end result to look like, because you're focusing on the timing. Like it certainly was for me anyway. One thing I've noticed from this year out, and I know other people feel this as well, because I've talked to a lot of creatives this year, I've joined a few illustration courses, I've really kind of got involved in the illustration community. The more you draw, the more you paint, the more you find your handwriting version of your work, of your drawing or your art, the more your style or your handwriting or your visual language, the more that translates throughout mediums. So whether you're a painter or a photographer, or you can be a painter, a photographer, an illustrator, and you might be doing things that you think are all over the place. So you might, like, for instance, I'm going to use my sister as an example. I remember in the past we've talked, and she can't see her own style in her stuff. So she does a lot of collage. She also does a lot of painting on canvases. She's done a lot of pencil and illustration drawing work, and to her she feels all over the map. But to me, I can see her hand in everything she's done. And I think that is the case for I think that's just the case. I think the more work you do, the more your visual language or your handwriting version of your drawing will shine through in whatever you do. So I think the key is just to do a lot of work so that when you're creating, you're only creating in your style. You're not doing it to try and draw like Axel Scheffler, or you're not doing it to try and draw a bit more like Oliver Jeffers or Lorena Alvarez or anyone like that. When you're working, you're doing it 100% in your style. And again, this is why I like time sketches, because in 30 seconds, in 1 minute, in 5 minutes, you don't have time to decide what style you're going to draw it in. You just have to put pencil to paper and draw. And I think the more you do that, the more you actually get used to drawing in your handwriting. I don't know how else to say it, in your visual language. And regardless of whether you go from paints to collage to pencils to digital to finger painting, as long as you're always doing it with your visual language, there'll be a thread all the way through that. And I really honestly don't think that you should be limiting yourself. I think eventually the more work that you put in, the more you'll maybe naturally find a preference. So I have naturally found a preference for sketching in pencil, but also because I've done a lot of kind of charcoal work in the past, I bring a bit of charcoal and pastel into my finished pieces. I have natural preferences, but that's only come from doing a load of work. And it's kind of, rather than me choosing to do it in that way, it's come naturally from trial and error. And that's also part of my visual language. So if you're all over the map style-wise, if you're doing lots of different things, if you're painting, if you're collaging, if you're photographing, I say keep doing it. Keep doing it, because that is all you, and that's all serving a purpose of developing your visual language. I hope that's helped, and I hope it's also been equally interesting as well as useful. It's always nice to look through people's sketchbooks. I love it. It's what I love sketchbooks. I love that little glimpse into someone's almost private life. When someone does a sketchbook tour or a sketchbook reveal, I always really love it. If you do like this kind of thing, do bear in mind, no pressure at all, but do bear in mind that it is one of the rewards on my Patreon, and you can join along on my Patreon for £1. My tiers start at £1, and you can cancel whenever you like, so you can join it for a month if you want, or you can keep your membership rolling over, that's fine. And remember, you get all of the other stuff on your £1 tier as well, so you don't just get the sketchbook tours, you get monthly downloads, you get access to our live drawing sessions, and I've kept the price as low as possible in order to make it as accessible to as many people as possible, because we're all skint, I know that, and I don't think drawing sessions and stuff like that should be available only to people who've got a bunch of money. So you're very welcome if you want to join, but no obligation if you don't, that's fine as well. I hope this has been interesting. Let me know in the comments if you've got any more questions, or if I didn't answer something specifically enough, if you want me to extend something, or if you've got a new question altogether. Let me know. I'm always interested to hear your opinions on things. And I'm going to leave this video here because I think I have talked for long enough. So until the next one, bye.